Now we're continuing to follow the latest on the capture of Ahmad Khan Rahami, the man wanted for the recent bombings in New York City and also New Jersey. A lot has happened in the past 48 hours. This all began Saturday morning when a bomb exploded at a charity run in Seaside Park, New Jersey. No one was hurt there, although later that evening, a blast rocked the Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan and 29 people were hurt.
And overnight, a pipe bomb exploded near a train station in the town of Elizabeth, New Jersey. Ahmad Khan Rahami was arrested within the last few hours.
After a shootout with police in Linden, New Jersey, at least 2 officers were injured, and so was Rahami. This is video of that active scene as police still look for more suspects. Joining us now by phone is CBS News Chief's Foreign Affairs correspondent and correspondent for 60 Minutes, Lara Logan. Lara, a lot has happened, as I mentioned. What is your take on all of this?
Well, if you begin with the bombing that took place in New Jersey, something that is not really being talked about, which people within the intelligence community, within the special operations community are concerned about, is that this race, even though no one was killed in that bombing, this race was for the MARSOC Foundation, which is the Marine Special Operations unit. And this foundation was set up to support their wounded warriors, families of those who are killed, that kind of thing. And many people from across the special operations community participate in that race every year. And so inside the community, what this means to them is that right at home on American soil, with their families and their friends present, they were targeted by the very people that they go after on the battlefields in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and elsewhere. And so for them, there's a particular significance to the target that was selected for this attack. And you know, when these things happen, very often they're measured in the body count, right? How devastating was it? How effective was it? But within the community, what these operators are saying is that the significance of this attack for them is in the target that was chosen, and then also the timing. You know, they're concerned about the fact that the bomb was timed to go off after the first runners would have gone by, but the race started late. So what they're saying is that, you know, that at least one possibility for that is that their running times, you know, were not secret. Someone was inside the system, and that's one of the things that's being investigated. It's not confirmed, but certainly something they're concerned about and looking into. And if you look at all of these small attacks taken as a whole, what the intelligence community will tell you is that this is the beginning of a strategy that the U.S. anticipated immediately following the attacks of 9/11, because they were tasked to look into how can Al-Qaeda best capitalize on this attack and the headlines and the fear that it has generated. And the strategy they came up with, they called it death by 1,000 cuts. And it was really the idea that all across the U.S., since it would be too difficult to mount another 9/11, you would have small operators, small cells, sometimes individuals, who would carry out small-scale attacks that, through a process of attrition, would wear down the morale of the American people, would inhibit the freedoms that people have, would add extra layers and layers and layers of security to just about anything you want to do, whether it's going to the shopping mall or going to a baseball game or running in a marathon. And that this would be a strategy that would be unique in its challenges for law enforcement and for the intelligence community, and would also be one that wore down the morale and the will of the American people. And And I've spoken to a number of intelligence people in the hours since these attacks happened and the news broke, and in their eyes, that strategy, death by 1,000 cuts, is underway.
You know, Lara, I want to pick up on something that you mentioned, though, in your comments regarding the running times. And I want you to clarify, do you mean that there is some suspicion that there may have been some research done to individual runners' running times so that when those people were crossing that particular area, that they knew when to detonate that bomb?
Well, according to one intelligence source, And I say that again, it's one intelligence source from inside that community who spoke about what they were looking into. They are looking at a number of different, obviously they're investigating every aspect of this attack. But the race began 20 minutes late. And what they're saying is that they believe that they missed the bomb because it started late, that it was set and timed. No one sets and times a bomb to hit no one, right? If you're going to bomb, the logical thinking on this is that if you're going to bomb a marathon or you're going to bomb a race, you obviously want to cause as much damage as you possibly can. So you time the bomb for when the runners are coming through, if it's on the route of the race. You don't time it for when there's going to be nobody there. So what they're looking at is if the delay in the start of the race is really what was behind the fact that nobody was hurt. And if that is the case, for you to time it that way, you would have to have some sense of when the first runners would be coming through. And now you could say, well, you know, on average time for a race like that with, people who are fit, because this is the MARSOC Foundation, and a lot of those people running that race are currently, operators who are inside the special operations community now. You could say, well, what would be the average time? And you could time it like that. But you could also say one possibility is that they had information as to what those times would be. And you can't, when you're in the intelligence community and you're targeted in a terrorist attack, you don't overlook any of the possibilities. You have to investigate all of them. You could say this one is more likely than another, but until you've investigated it and worked out exactly what you think happened, then you have to take all the possibilities into consideration. And there is evidence already that ISIS, for example, has hacked into military computer systems. I mean, look at the names and addresses of U.S. military personnel that has been leaked on the Internet by them before. They provided a list of individuals who they said they gave to their followers and suggested that they target them. So, I mean, hacking is prolific across the cyber world. That's no secret. So, given that, it would be, it would be remiss of them not to investigate that at least as a possibility.
The race was to benefit Marine Special Operations. One place that Marine Special Operations have been undertaken in the last 15 years, of course, is Afghanistan. The suspect is of Afghan descent. Can you talk a bit about how that heritage may play a role in what he's suspected of doing here? And are you suggesting that there is a direct connection between what U.S. operations were in his country, not of birth, but his family's country of heritage, and what happened in the last 36 to 48 hours?
Well, I'm not suggesting anything. Just to be clear on that. I mean, we haven't even discussed the Afghan connection to this. But when you look at the whole picture of his life, I mean, what's being reported now is that he came to this country as a child. So there are many things that have impacted his upbringing, including the fact that the United States has given him a home. His father has a restaurant. I mean, the family is not poverty-stricken, at least superficial indications are. So you can't just it's oversimplifying it to just point to what happened to the war in Afghanistan and say, there you go. That's why he did this. I mean, at this point, so little is known about what has happened to him along the way and what he believes in. There hasn't been any kind of statement released by him, nothing that's been posted out there that gives you insight into his thinking. So as a journalist, I would hesitate to jump in and make that kind of connection. What we do know, though, is that whether it's the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or the Haqqani network, which is really the Afghan Al-Qaeda, or the Islamic State, they have consistently and persistently put out in great detail on social media and in their propaganda who should be targeted. They've been very specific that the military and their families and their supporters should be targeted. They have given the example of marathons and running races and used that repeatedly. They have built on the attack by the Sarnaev brothers at the Boston Marathon bombing, and the headlines that generated, and referred to that repeatedly. So and the targeting is, in all likelihood, not accidental. I mean, you speak to anyone inside the special operations community today, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who thinks that targeting is accidental. This MARSOC, the Marine Special Operations Force in particular, because they're the newest of the branches of special operations, they have been very active. They have volunteered and put themselves at the forefront of many of the U.S. efforts on the battlefield. And so they are known to the people that they're fighting against. Sometimes it's hard for us to make that leap and realize how sophisticated this enemy is, but time and again, they show how sophisticated they are. They adapt constantly. They know exactly who they're up against. They study and they learn and they observe the U.S. and then they constantly come up with new strategies and inventive ways to continue their fight. They rarely stand and fight to the death because they know the value of living to another day. And so when we stand up and say, well, look, they're not very competent, or they're not very brave, or they're not very effective, they show time and again that isn't really true. I mean, their actions and their successes show over time that is not true.
All right. Lara Logan, Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent for CBS News and a correspondent for 60 Minutes. Greatly appreciate your perspective.
Thank you very much.